The Mindset You Never Learned, Stoic IronMind Essentials. What if everything you were taught about mindset was incomplete? What if the reason you feel strong in theory but weak under pressure is because you were trained to think positively, not to think correctly? No one ever taught you the mindset required to endure reality. You were taught optimism, motivation, confidence, useful words. Weak foundations. When pressure arrives, these ideas collapse, not because you are incapable, but because your mind was never trained for friction. Stoic philosophy begins where modern self-improvement fails. It does not promise comfort. It does not promise happiness. It promises clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote not to feel better, but to remain upright when life turns hostile. Viktor Frankl did not search for motivation. He searched for meaning under unbearable conditions. This is the mindset you never learned, not how to feel good, but how to remain whole. Modern psychology explains why this gap exists. You were taught to avoid discomfort, to interpret pain as injustice, to treat emotional resistance as a problem. Nietzsche called this a dangerous lie. Pain is not an enemy, it is information. Schopenhauer warned that the mind suffers more from interpretation than from reality itself. The Stoic iron mind learns to strip illusion before it becomes identity. Most people collapse not because life is too heavy, but because their inner structure is weak. Jung described this as living unconsciously, ruled by patterns never examined. When pressure exposes these patterns, anxiety rises, discipline disappears, and reaction replaces reason. This is not a character flaw. It is a training failure. The mindset you never learned is built on internal hierarchy. Thought before emotion, principle before impulse, meaning before outcome. Epictetus taught that you are not disturbed by events, but by the judgments you attach to them. That single distinction changes everything. It separates control from chaos, strength from noise, presence from panic. Modern culture teaches expression. Stoicism teaches restraint, not repression, command. Fromm explained that maturity is the ability to act without compulsive reassurance. The Stoic iron mind does not deny emotion. It assigns it a role. Emotion informs, reason decides. Action follows. This order creates stability under pressure. You were never taught this because it does not sell comfort, it demands responsibility. Kierkegaard warned that despair is not suffering, but the refusal to become oneself. The Stoic mindset forces you to confront yourself without excuses. That confrontation is uncomfortable. It is also transformative. This is not about becoming cold or cruel. It is about becoming grounded, disciplined, clear. The Stoic iron mind does not harden against life. It strengthens within it. Pain becomes feedback. Pressure becomes calibration. Chaos becomes a training ground. If you feel like something essential was missing in everything you learned about mindset, you are right. What was missing was discipline without illusion, meaning without sentimentality, strength without performance. This video is not here to motivate you. It is here to rebuild the way you think. The modern idea of mindset was built for comfort, not for reality. It teaches you to feel confident, to visualize success, to repeat affirmations until doubt feels quieter. This works when life is calm. It collapses the moment pressure becomes real, when consequences appear, when loss, rejection, or failure enter the room. That is where the illusion breaks. Stoic philosophy never asked how to feel better. It asked how to remain stable when feeling better is not an option. Seneca warned that a mind dependent on favorable conditions is already enslaved. Modern self-improvement does the opposite. It conditions strength on mood. When motivation disappears, discipline follows. When discipline collapses, behavior becomes reactive. Psychology confirms this pattern. Habits built on emotion are fragile. Habits built on principle endure. Nietzsche attacked this weakness directly. He saw the pursuit of constant positivity as a refusal to confront reality. When discomfort is treated as a mistake, the mind avoids growth. Schopenhauer went further. He argued that most suffering is created by expectations, not by events themselves. Modern mindset multiplies expectation. Stoic mindset dismantles it. You were taught to manage feelings. You were never taught to manage judgments. This is the critical failure. Epictetus made it clear that emotions follow interpretation, not events. When interpretation remains unconscious, emotion controls action. Jung called this possession by the shadow. The unexamined parts of the psyche drive behavior, while the conscious mind believes it is in control. Under pressure, this possession becomes visible. The mind seeks escape instead of response. Excuses replace responsibility. Blame replaces clarity. Fromm described this as immaturity, disguised as self-expression. The Stoic iron mind refuses this regression. It accepts discomfort as the price of clarity. It trains the mind to remain present instead of dramatic. Modern mindset celebrates confidence. Stoic mindset builds reliability. Confidence without structure evaporates when challenged. Reliability remains when outcomes are uncertain. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the task of life is not to be admired, but to act correctly regardless of applause. That principle is absent from most modern psychological advice. It does not sell easily. It also does not break under stress. The Stoic iron mind understands that resilience is not emotional toughness, it is interpretive discipline. When events are stripped of unnecessary meaning, reaction weakens. When reaction weakens, choice appears. Choice is freedom. This freedom is internal. It cannot be given, it must be trained. Kierkegaard warned that despair grows when a person refuses responsibility for their inner life. Modern mindset often encourages avoidance, disguised as self-care. Stoic mindset demands engagement, not aggression. Engagement, the willingness to face what is unpleasant without surrendering clarity. This is why the mindset you never learned matters. It prepares you for days when optimism fails, motivation disappears, and life does not cooperate. It builds a mind that does not need favorable conditions to function. It creates stability without illusion. Every human mind operates under a hierarchy, whether you are aware of it or not. Something always comes first, an impulse, a fear, a principle, a desire. When this hierarchy is unconscious, life feels chaotic. When it is trained, life becomes ordered. The mindset you never learned is not about thinking differently. It is about reorganizing command inside your own mind. Most people believe they choose their actions. In reality, they react. Emotion rises, thought rushes to justify it, and behavior follows. This sequence feels natural, but it is inverted. Epictetus warned that when impressions arrive unexamined, the mind becomes a servant. Jung described this as being ruled by autonomous complexes. The person feels free while being driven from below. Stoic discipline reverses this order. Thought is trained to pause before emotion gains authority. Principle is installed above impulse, meaning stands above comfort. This does not remove emotion. It places it where it belongs. Emotion becomes information, not command. When this hierarchy is restored, pressure loses its power to destabilize behavior. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. He did not ask whether something felt pleasant or painful. He asked whether it was necessary, just, and aligned with reason. This question reorganizes the entire psyche. Modern psychology calls this cognitive reappraisal. Stoicism practiced it centuries earlier, without soft language or therapeutic framing. The result is the same. Emotional intensity decreases. Behavioral precision increases. Most people live without this structure. They wake already reacting. Messages dictate mood, setbacks dictate identity, praise dictates confidence. This is not living, it is drifting. Fromm warned that when a person surrenders internal authority, they become dependent on external signals. This dependency creates anxiety, anxiety creates avoidance, avoidance destroys growth. The Stoic iron mind understands that inner hierarchy must be trained deliberately. This training is not comfortable. It requires watching your own reactions without indulgence. It requires refusing to act immediately on irritation, fear, or excitement. Nietzsche called this the discipline of instincts. Without it, instincts discipline you. Schopenhauer observed that a restless mind multiplies suffering. By clinging to every stimulus, modern life accelerates this restlessness. Notifications, opinions, comparisons. The Stoic mindset counters this by slowing interpretation. When interpretation slows, emotion weakens. When emotion weakens, choice expands. This is why Stoic calm feels unnatural at first. It is not suppression. It is unfamiliar order. A mind used to chaos experiences discipline as emptiness. That emptiness is space. Space allows clarity. Clarity allows action aligned with intention rather than impulse. Kierkegaard wrote that becoming oneself is the most demanding task of all. It requires standing still internally while the world pushes. The Stoic iron mind trains for this stillness, not to escape life, but to meet it without distortion. Once the internal hierarchy is restored, you no longer ask how to feel motivated. You act because action aligns with who you are becoming. Discipline stops being a burden. It becomes structure. Structure becomes freedom. Pain was never meant to be eliminated. It was meant to be understood. The mindset you never learned taught you to treat pain as a malfunction, something to fix, avoid, or explain away. Stoicism sees pain differently, not as punishment, not as proof of failure, but as a signal that exposes the limits of your inner structure. Marcus Aurelius wrote that pain touches the body and circumstance, not the ruling faculty, unless you grant it permission. This is not denial, it is hierarchy. When pain arrives, it tests whether emotion commands your mind or whether your mind commands emotion. Most people fail this test immediately. They personalize pain. They dramatize it. They turn sensation into narrative. That narrative becomes identity. Modern psychology confirms this escalation. The initial sensation is neutral. The interpretation multiplies suffering. Schopenhauer warned that the mind suffers twice, once from the event, again from the story it tells about the event. Stoic discipline cuts the second wound. That cut feels brutal at first. It is also liberating. The Stoic iron mind does not ask why pain exists. It asks what pain reveals. Resistance exposes weakness. Pressure exposes habits. Discomfort exposes attachment. When pain provokes panic, it reveals dependency. When pain provokes anger, it reveals entitlement. When pain provokes despair, it reveals meaninglessness. None of this is moral judgment. It is diagnostic clarity. Nietzsche called this the discipline of suffering, not masochism. Refinement, the capacity to extract strength from resistance instead of demanding relief. Jung understood that what you refuse to face grows stronger in the unconscious. Avoided pain does not disappear. It becomes anxiety, resentment, and self-sabotage. Stoic mindset meets pain directly to prevent this decay. Modern culture teaches emotional safety. Stoicism teaches psychological stability. Safety depends on conditions. Stability depends on structure. Fromm argued that immature minds seek protection. Mature minds seek orientation. Orientation allows movement even when terrain is hostile. The Stoic iron mind trains to remain present with discomfort without collapsing into narrative. This presence slows interpretation. Slowed interpretation weakens emotional reaction. When reaction weakens, pain loses its power to dictate behavior. Action becomes possible even while discomfort remains. This is why Stoic strength appears cold to those trained to dramatize suffering. It is not cold, it is economical. It wastes nothing on unnecessary meaning. Pain becomes feedback, feedback becomes calibration. Calibration produces growth. Kierkegaard warned that despair arises when a person refuses to confront the self revealed by suffering. Stoicism forces this confrontation. It does not offer escape, it offers refinement. The self that emerges is quieter, stronger, less reactive. It no longer demands life be different to function. When pain is no longer interpreted as injustice, the mind regains authority. Authority creates endurance. Endurance creates freedom. This freedom is not comfort, it is capacity. Most minds are not fragile because they feel pain. They are fragile because they demand outcomes. Desire, when left unexamined, becomes attachment. Attachment becomes expectation. Expectation becomes vulnerability. This chain is invisible to most people, yet it governs nearly every emotional collapse. Stoic philosophy confronts this directly. Epictetus warned that the moment you bind your inner peace to external results, you surrender your freedom. Desire itself is not the problem. The problem is confusion about what desire can control. When outcomes are treated as entitlements, reality feels hostile. When reality resists, the mind interprets resistance as betrayal. Modern psychology mirrors this insight. Cognitive distress intensifies when expectations harden into identity. Jung described this as inflation of the ego. The self expands beyond what it can govern, then collapses when the world does not comply. The Stoic iron mind avoids this inflation by reducing desire to intention, not demand. Marcus Aurelius practiced this discipline relentlessly. He aimed for excellence in action, not guarantees in result. This distinction changes everything. Action remains within command. Outcome does not. When this boundary is respected, disappointment loses its sting. Effort becomes meaningful even when results are uncertain. Schopenhauer saw desire as an endless cycle of wanting and dissatisfaction. Stoicism does not deny this cycle. It interrupts it, not by eliminating desire, but by stripping it of entitlement. Desire becomes direction, attachment dissolves. Fromm described this shift as moving from having to being. The mind stops clinging and starts orienting. Expectation is the silent architect of frustration. When you expect recognition, you interpret silence as disrespect. When you expect fairness, you interpret difficulty as injustice. When you expect progress without resistance, you interpret struggle as failure. The Stoic iron mind dissolves these expectations before they metastasize into resentment. Nietzsche warned that resentment poisons strength from within. A resentful mind cannot grow. It is too busy negotiating with reality. Stoic discipline ends this negotiation. Life is not obligated to reward you. It is obligated to test you. This understanding restores dignity. You stop asking life to validate you. You validate yourself through conduct. Desire without discipline creates dependency. Dependency creates fear. Fear creates compliance. This is how fragile minds are controlled. The Stoic refuses this chain. He desires growth, not comfort. Alignment, not applause. Meaning, not outcome. Frankl showed that when meaning anchors action, suffering loses its power to destroy. The Stoic iron mind does not suppress longing. It clarifies it. What can I influence? What must I accept? What deserves my effort regardless of result? This clarity stabilizes emotion. Emotion stabilizes behavior. Behavior stabilizes identity. When desire is purified of entitlement, the mind regains strength. Disappointment becomes data. Delay becomes training. Resistance becomes refinement. Fragility dissolves not because life becomes easier, but because expectation no longer dictates worth. Most people waste time not because they lack hours, but because they live as if time were infinite. Urgency is misunderstood. It is not speed. It is awareness of finitude. The mindset you never learned treats time as something to manage. Stoicism treats time as something to honor. Marcus Aurelius wrote with the awareness that every action might be his last. Not to create anxiety, but precision. When time is finite, distraction becomes costly. Delay becomes self-betrayal. The Stoic iron mind does not rush. He does not drift. He acts with intention because he understands that life is not renewable. Modern psychology confirms this distortion. When mortality is denied, behavior becomes careless. Jung observed that a psyche disconnected from death loses depth. It chases stimulation instead of meaning. This is why urgency today feels frantic rather than focused. People hurry without direction. They exhaust themselves without progress. Stoic urgency is different. It is quiet. It is disciplined. It removes unnecessary movement. Seneca warned that people are frugal with money and wasteful with life. The Stoic corrects this imbalance by treating attention as sacred. Where attention goes, life follows. The Stoic iron mind does not postpone alignment. He does not wait for motivation to act. Motivation is unreliable. Time is not. When you act from awareness of mortality, excuses weaken. Procrastination loses its charm. Every moment wasted becomes visible as theft from your own becoming. Kierkegaard wrote that despair is living as if one had unlimited time to become oneself. The Stoic mindset refuses this illusion. It demands presence now. Not urgency driven by fear, but urgency driven by responsibility. Frankl showed that meaning intensifies when time is limited. When you know moments are finite, actions gain weight. Modern culture teaches hustle without purpose. Stoicism teaches restraint with direction. This restraint creates endurance. The Stoic iron mind understands that sustainable discipline outlasts frantic effort. He chooses consistency over intensity. He respects rhythms instead of fighting them. Mortality also clarifies priorities. When time is limited, trivial conflicts lose importance. Ego battles shrink. Approval-seeking becomes absurd. The Stoic is not indifferent to life. He is devoted to what matters. This devotion creates calm focus even in demanding environments. Schopenhauer observed that boredom and anxiety are symptoms of a mind disconnected from meaning. Stoic discipline reconnects action to purpose. Time becomes an ally instead of an enemy. Each day becomes a training ground, not a waiting room. When urgency is grounded in mortality, the mind sharpens. Distractions fall away. Decisions simplify. Action becomes deliberate. This is the mindset you never learned. Not how to do more, but how to waste less of yourself. Most suffering is not caused by life. It is caused by the image you protect. The mindset you never learned did not teach you how to dismantle ego. It taught you how to decorate it. Confidence, self-expression, personal brand. These ideas strengthen the mask while weakening the self behind it. Stoic philosophy attacks ego at the root. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that praise and blame are equally irrelevant to character. Epictetus warned that the moment you identify with reputation, you surrender freedom. The Stoic iron mind does not build identity from how he is perceived. He builds it from how he acts when no one is watching. Modern psychology explains why ego defense is exhausting. Jung described the persona as the social mask worn to gain acceptance. When a person confuses this mask with the self, anxiety becomes constant. Every interaction becomes a performance. Every criticism feels existential. The Stoic mindset refuses this confusion. It separates function from identity. Nietzsche saw ego as a fragile structure built to avoid confronting weakness. When challenged, ego reacts with anger, justification, or withdrawal. This reaction feels like strength. It is not. It is fear protecting itself. Stoic discipline dissolves this fear by removing the need to be seen as anything other than disciplined. The Stoic iron mind does not ask, "Who am I?" in the eyes of others. He asks, "Who am I becoming through my conduct?" This shift dismantles comparison. Fromm explained that a person who defines themselves by having rather than being becomes dependent on external validation. Stoic identity is internal. It cannot be threatened by opinion. Most people defend a version of themselves they did not choose consciously. They protect habits, beliefs, and narratives inherited from culture and childhood. Kierkegaard warned that the greatest despair is living as someone you never decided to be. Stoic mindset forces decision. What matters? What does not? What is worth carrying forward? Ego resists discipline because discipline exposes inconsistency. When behavior is examined, illusions collapse. This collapse feels like loss. It is actually relief. The Stoic iron mind experiences freedom when he no longer needs to defend an image. He can be wrong without humiliation, silent without invisibility, firm without hostility. Schopenhauer observed that the ego clings to life through desire and fear. Stoicism loosens this grip, not to withdraw from life but to engage without distortion. When ego no longer dictates reaction, clarity emerges. When clarity emerges, action becomes precise. The false self demands comfort. The disciplined self demands alignment. The first seeks admiration. The second seeks coherence. Only one of them survives pressure without bitterness. The Stoic iron mind knows which one must be dismantled. The mindset you never learned was never missing by accident. It was absent because it demands responsibility, not comfort. It does not flatter the ego, it dismantles it. It does not promise happiness, it offers coherence. And coherence is what allows a human being to endure reality without collapsing inward. When Stoic philosophy, existential clarity, and psychological discipline converge, something precise emerges. Not motivation, not positivity, structure. Marcus Aurelius understood this intuitively. He governed himself so that chaos outside could not destabilize order within. Viktor Frankl articulated the same truth under extreme conditions. Meaning does not eliminate suffering. It gives suffering a place that does not destroy the self. The Stoic iron mind framework is simple, but not easy. Thought must precede emotion. Principle must precede impulse. Meaning must precede outcome. When this order is respected, the mind stabilizes. When it is violated, anxiety multiplies. Jung warned that a psyche without structure is vulnerable to possession. Stoic discipline restores structure through awareness and restraint. This mindset does not reject emotion, it rejects emotional rule. Emotion becomes data, not command. Desire becomes direction, not demand. Pain becomes feedback, not injustice. Time becomes sacred, not expendable. Ego becomes a tool, not an identity. Each of these shifts removes a layer of illusion. Illusion is the true enemy of resilience. Fromm described mature freedom as the ability to act without compulsive reassurance. The Stoic iron mind embodies this freedom. Action flows from alignment, not validation. Silence is no longer threatening. Criticism is no longer destabilizing. Failure is no longer identity. Success is no longer intoxication. Nietzsche warned that those who do not govern themselves will be governed by circumstance. Stoicism answers this warning without cruelty. It does not harden the heart, it sharpens the mind. Kierkegaard reminded us that becoming oneself is the most demanding task of all. The Stoic iron mind accepts this demand without resentment. This framework is not a philosophy to admire. It is a discipline to practice. Every day tests it. Every setback reveals its absence or its strength. When the mind is ordered, life does not become easier. It becomes clearer. And clarity is what allows action without panic and endurance without bitterness. You were never taught this mindset because it cannot be sold as comfort. It must be lived as responsibility. It asks you to stop negotiating with reality and start training yourself to meet it. The training is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is consistent, it is quiet, it is transformative. This is what Stoic IronMind represents. Clarity without cruelty, discipline without illusion, strength without performance. The world will continue to test you. Pressure will return. Pain will reappear. Time will remain finite. The difference is no longer external. It is internal. When the mind is ordered, the person endures. When the person endures, life loses its power to break them.